Hello there everyone. Today I want to show you how to make this cherry blossom beaded Kumihimo bracelet, and it looks like this. So you get your cherry blossoms going all the way around with your little leaves on them, different leaves on each one, and then the flowers on the outside of the bracelet here, so it'll look like this when you're wearing it. So if you want to learn how to make this, then keep watching. So here are the things that we'll need. Now because we're making a round braid, we'll need a round Kumihimo disc for this. And then the cord that I'm working with here is an S-Lon, and it's a 0.4mm in thickness. And I'm just working with a black colour because to be a nice neutral background colour for the beads that I'm using. Now as for the beads, I'm using two different kinds of beads here in some different colours. The first one's down here are some green long magatamas, and these are going to be the leaves for the flowers. And then the other three colours of beads that I have up here, these are all the same type of bead and the same size as well. These are 6/0 seed beads or 4mm rounds. And as for the colours that I'm using, the first one I've got here is a blue one. That's going to be the background for the whole braid. The next one here is a pink one. That's going to be the colour of the actual flowers. And the white one up here is just going to be the middle of every flower. And then finally, we'll just need whatever findings we're going to use. So I've got my Kumihimo ends there, I've got my jump rings, extender chain, and then I've got a lobster claw clasp here. And I'm just using a flower design one. I thought it would be quite pretty to go with the braid as well, seeing as it's a flower design on the braid. So that's just what I'm going to be using. But let's get it all together and then let's get started. So what we need to do first is cut a cord, and what I have here is 4 lengths of about 1 meter each. And then also I'm going to put all the ends together like this to find roughly the middle of all the cords up here. And then what I've done is I put a regular overhand knot to keep them all together, and so I know this is about the middle of the cords, and I'm also going to use that to then attach my cords to the Kumihimo disc. So to do that, we need to get a Kumihimo disc out here, and then also the cords that we already got ready. And what I've just done as well is tied a bit of wire around that knot, so the middle of the cords, just to kind of help hold on to and pull down. You can also add a weight to your braid once you've attached it to the disc. That's completely up to you how you prefer working. But then we need to attach this, all these cords, distribute them on the disc here, and I'm not going to worry about the numbers. I'm just going to look at the dots. So place 2 cords around the dots, 1 on each side all the way around. So get 2 and put them on each side of a dot there, and the last 2 here around the bottom one, and then just center up that knot in the middle of that hole in the disc. So just like that, and I'm just going to use the wire to help pull down my braid for now, but like I said, you can also use a weight. So what we need to do to begin with is make a little section of just braid before we start adding in the beads. So I'm just going to start my 8-strand braid here. I'm going to take my top left one, bring that down, stay on the left side of the bottom pair, take my bottom right one, bring that up and stay on the right side of the top there. And then we turn the disc a quarter, and it doesn't matter what direction you turn the disc in, you can turn it the other way than me, that's completely up to you. And I take my top left one again, bring it down, stay on the left side, and then take my bottom right one, bring it up and stay on the right side of that top one. And again, turn the disc a quarter and just keep going like that until we have about 1 centimetre to 2 centimetres of braid, because then we're going to use that little section to finish off the bracelet right at the end. So I've kept braiding for a bit now, so I've ended up with about 1 centimetre of braid coming out of the back there. So now it's time for us to add in the beads. So I've now added all my beads onto all my lengths of cord here, and then this is the setup that you want to do. Now obviously you can see the setup on here, but what I've also done is taken a picture of this whole setup and then put that on my website, so you can go and have a look at that. It's going to be a little bit easier maybe to have a look at the individual strands and see what beads are there. So I'm going to put a link to that in the description box below so you can have a look, and it might make it a little bit easier. Because at first glance it might look like it's quite random, this pattern, but there is actually a basic pattern to it. The only thing that's making it look random is all the green Magatama beads that I've used, and the reason that they are placed randomly is because I wanted each flower to basically have the leaves in different places around them. So I'm just going to briefly go over this now, but then also have a look on that picture on my website to get a bit more detailed look. So to start on the side here, because those are the only ones that don't have any of the green magatamas, the pattern on these is just 2 blue, 2 pink, 2 blue, 2 pink, and so on all the way to the end of the strand. And on both of these I've then ended up with 34 beads, and they're both exactly the same. So then straight opposite on the other side of the disc here, what we have is also 34 beads in total in each one. Now you can kind of say the base colour is the blue all the way, and then it's just interspersed with some of the green magatama beads along the way where I found it suitable depending on the flower and how I wanted it to look. So on the first one here, so the bottom one, I have first of all 8 of my blue beads, then 1 green magatama, 11 of my blue beads, 1 green magatama, then 3 of the blue beads, 1 green magatama, and then 7 of my blue beads, 1 green magatama, and then I finish on the just 1 blue bead. Now on the other one, so the upper one of the two here, what I have is 13 blue beads first, then 1 green magatama, 3 blue beads, 1 green magatama, and then I have 11 blue beads, 1 green magatama, and I finish on 4 blue beads. Now one thing that you just want to be aware of as well is that you're threading on your magatama beads in the right direction, because the shape of the magatamas is quite distinct and the drill hole in them as well is a bit of an angle. So what you'll find when you thread them on, there will kind of be a point to one of the sides, and that will either be facing up or down. Now on the bottom one here, all the points of the magatamas are pointing upwards, and on the top one they're all pointing downwards, so just bear that in mind when you're threading them on. Now moving on to the top two cords here, again I have 34 beads on each of them. So starting with the one to the left side of the dot, so in my case the one that's lying on top there, again the base colour is just the blue beads that's then interspersed with some of the green magatama beads. And the order of them is that you have 10 blue beads first, then 1 green magatama, 15 blue beads, 1 green magatama, and then you finish on 7 blue beads. And on this strand, the points of the magatamas need to also be pointing downwards. Now as for the cord on the right side of that dot, so the bottom one here, what we have is both the blue, the pink and the green magatama beads. And the basic pattern on this is that we start out with 2 blue beads, but then we're going to the pattern of 1 pink, 3 blue, 1 pink, 3 blue, all the way and finishing on 3 blue, but on some of the groups within the blue ones we have some green magatama beads. So in this case we have the group of 3 beads in between the pink ones, the first one, the third one, and then the 7th one here, so the second to last one. Those all have a green magatama as the very last of the 3. And the points on these magatamas, like the other one, the point of them is also pointing downwards towards the disc. Now moving on to the 2 cords on the bottom here that we haven't gone through yet, these also both have 34 beads on each. Now the first one, the one on the left side of that dot, is quite similar to the one that we've just gone through. It's the same basic pattern, so we start out with 3 blue ones though instead of 2, and then go into the pattern of pink, 3 blue, pink, 3 blue, and then it ends on 2 blue up here instead of starting with it. But also some of the groups are interspersed with 1 green magatama beads in place of a blue one. And on this strand it's group number 2, number 3, number 6 and 8 that all have a green magatama bead as the first one in that group. And these are all pointing with a point facing upward. Now the last strand down here is the only strand that has the white beads on it, and those are the ones that are the centre of the flowers. So the basic pattern on this one is that we start out with 3 blue beads, then a white 3 blue, a white 3 blue, and so on, and we finish on the 2 blue. But with one exception, the second group here, we have 1 green magatama as the very first bead in place of a blue one. And again, like this strand, the point of that is pointing upwards away from the disc. So this is how I set up all my beads on my disc here. And now what I just need to point out is this setup is for if you start with your top left cord and bring it down, or if you start with your bottom right one, because that is the same result you're going to get. Now if you start from the top right or the bottom left one, what you'll need to do is just switch around the positioning of your strands. So imagine that you have a mirror in front of your disc, and then it's the mirror image that you need to put your beads on in. But if you, like I said, if you start with the top left or the bottom right, I usually start with the top left, it comes natural to me that way, then just set it up as I've shown you here. Only if you start with the top right one or the bottom left, what we'll need to do is switch over the cords. So basically the 2 top ones need to switch places. because then you start with the top right one, which in my case is the left one, so they need to switch places. The bottom two need to switch places over the dot there. The side ones will need to swap over this way. So that means the top one on the right side needs to swap with the top one on the left side, and the bottom one on the right side needs to swap with the bottom one on the left side. And then if you just set it up like that, then you can start with either the top right one or the bottom left one and get the same result. And also what direction you're going with the disc, it doesn't matter at all, because this is an 8-strand braid, so if you turn it right or turn it left, it doesn't matter at all. Just as long as you set up your beads correctly, depending on how you usually work your braid. So now that we added all our beads onto all our lengths of cord here, what we need to do now is start adding them into the braid. So what I'm going to do is pick up my disc, and then like I said, you can have a weight here at the back helping you pull it through. So like I said, I start from my top left one. So when I do that, what I'm going to do, same as before, we're going to bring the cord over, but as I'm releasing the cord here, I'm just going to release one bead as well. As you can see there, let it drop all the way down, and then what we just need to make sure of is that bead tucks underneath the other cords here, so the cord that's coming out to the side. It goes right underneath there before we bring it over. So it's going to be trapped underneath and end up on the outside of the braid. You have to make sure to just tuck in the beads underneath there, because that's how they end up on the outside of the braid, otherwise they'll be captured on the inside. And that's not the look we're going for in this braid. So then I take my bottom right one. As I release the cord, I release one bead, let it drop down, make sure it tucks in right in the middle there underneath the other cords. Bring that up, turn my disc, and then continue in the same way. Now the first few beads are always the hardest here because there's not really much there to capture them yet, it's just a bit of thin cord. But just keep going, it's going to get a lot easier, and sometimes you'll find as well, release the cord, drop one bead down, that as you drop in the bead, sometimes it'll actually fall down into place naturally and catch by itself. But just keep double checking, because sometimes it does that and that's fine, other times it doesn't, and you'll just have to help it on the way by tucking it in. So like so, the bottom right one, release the cord as I'm dropping one bead down, tuck it in, and then place it at the top. And just keep going with this. So this is how you're building up your braid. Now if you're a bit unsure about adding beads to your Kumihimo braids here, then I do have a video that shows how to do it in more detail. I'm going to put a link to that in the description box below. But you just keep adding the beads now to your braid here until you run out of all your beads. And then once you've done that, you have your pattern on the braid. And then I'm going to show you how we finish off the braid as well. So I've now continued my braid where I added my beads until I run out of all the beads and all my cords there. So what we need to do now is continue the braid without beads for a little section, just like we did at the beginning there. So we need to replicate that, and all we do is just continue the exact same braid, just like this, just without adding the beads. And then up here your cords will naturally singe in and become a tight braid again. And just do this again until you have about 1 centimeter or 2 of braid right at the end, because we'll need that, just like the other end, to finish it off at the end here. So I've now finished that little section of braid just with a cord, and then what we can do is take it off the board, but we just need to secure the end in place so the cords don't unravel. So what I'm going to do is just take 2 cords that are diagonally opposite each other. I'm going to start with these 2 pairs. Now don't start with a pair that you just used, because that's kind of the loose cord on top. But just start with the bottom ones, take them across the braid, and then tie a regular overhand knot and tighten that across the middle there. Put them back in just to get them out of the way. Take the other 2 opposite each other in that same pair, do the same thing, tie a knot just across the middle. Move over to the other pairs. So we take these ones now that are diagonally opposite each other. And this is just to secure the braid in place at the end, so we can take it off, but it also makes it quite nice and neat without adding too much bulk at the end, so we can get it into the Kumihimo ends. And the last one here, just like this. And then now we've done that, we can take it completely off because it's not going to come undone. just like that. And then here we have the finished braid. So we get all the little cherry flowers across the braid there with the leaves on. It gives it a bit that 3D effect, like that, and just on the one side as well. So the magatama beads are on the inside and kind of maybe stabbing into your wrist. So this is going to be the outside. It's going to end up like this. So all that's left to do now is finish off the ends. Now I already have a video that shows how to do that. So if you need to, you can go and have a look at that. There's going to be a link in the description box below. So then once you've finished off both your ends here, attach your Kumihimo ends and then your findings, clasp at the other end, then you'll have your finished bracelet. And then all that's left to do is start wearing it. So like this, fasten it up, and then it'll look like this. So all your flowers will be facing outward, and the leaves as well. So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and thank you very much for watching. Hello there everyone. Today I want to show you how to make this beaded Kumihimo braid but using long magatama beads, which will give you a completely different effect than any other beads. And this is what it looks like. So because of the shape of these beads, you get this almost like scaly effect. And it's a really nice result you can get. So if you want to learn how to do that, then keep watching. And so these are the things that you'll need. Now for this, we'll need to